Hello all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to create suppliers in Oracle Fusion. So there are a couple of prerequisites before you start creating a supplier. First thing is the user who needs to create a supplier should have the supplier manager role assigned to him, and also the user should be an employee user, and he should be created as a procurement agent. The thing is like if you do not create this user as a procurement agent, you should be able to create a supplier and supplier address, but he'll not be able to create the supplier sites. And the last one is we should assign the supplier numbering. Again, supplier number is instance specific, it's just a one-time activity. So now let me get into these prerequisites, and once these prerequisites are done, I'll show you how to create the supplier. Okay. The first thing is user should have the supplier manager role. Okay, supplier manager role. I already have the supplier manager role assigned to this user. Second thing is create the employee as the procurement agent. So the task is manage procurement agent. Go to setup and maintenance. Search manage procurement agent. So there are, this being a testing environment, there are a lot of procurement agents. So you know, to create a new procurement agent, just click on this create, and procurement BU, that is your procurement business unit. So my procurement business unit is Reliance Telecom, and agent. Okay, let me search for the agent. Cassie Brown is my user. Okay. So for this particular Cassie Brown agent for Reliance Telecom business unit, I'm assigning all these tasks: manage requisitions, manage purchase orders, manage purchase agreements, so on. And we also have something called manage supply. So this is critical from a supplier site creation perspective. If this is not checked, then this user will not be able to create the supplier sites. Save and close. The combination of the procurement business must be okay. Yeah, I think the reason why I'm getting this error message is I have already created this procurement agent under this procurement PU, so that's the reason why you are getting that error message. But otherwise, this is a one-time activity. This being a testing environment, I had already created uh, this particular procurement agent under this PU. Okay. And the next thing is assign supplier numbering. So the task is manage, specify supplier numbering. That's the task. So again, this being a testing environment, this is already set. So the next supplier number would be 1401. So now when we try to create a supplier, our supplier number will be 1401. Okay, so these are the prerequisites. Now let's get into the different steps. First thing is create. We have three different steps, like create a supplier, and then supplier address, and then supplier site. So the first step would be to register a supplier, and under supplier enter the address. We start with the first one, register a supplier. So as I have already assigned the supplier manager role, which is a prerequisite to my user, I should be able to see the menu to create a supplier here. So under procurement, I should be able to create a suppliers. So click on this task pane and register supplier. So this is the name of the company or name of the supplier. So let me call it as say ABC Limited, and request region. So this is a new supplier, so I just want to create as a new supply source. And business relationship, you have prospect to spend authorized. So in order to create your AP transactions, or your in order to create your purchase requisitions or purchase orders, you should create a spend. You should create the business relationship as spend authorized. If you select the business relationship as prospective, then I think you should be able to use this particular supplier only under certain sourcing transaction, but you will not be able to create a transaction using this particular supplier. So let me select the business relationship as spend authorized. So now we are creating the just the supplier header part. So that's the reason it's not mandatory to assign any procurement BU. And okay, tax organization type. This is required from a 1099 reporting perspective. So from a 1099 reporting perspective, what kind of organization is that? Is it a corporation, foreign company, foreign individual, foreign partnership, and so on? So let me just select as corporation. And again, supplier type is basically what kind of supplier. Is it a manufacturing company, services, federal, public sector, just the normal supplier, contractor, subcontractor? Let me select supplier. And here it says at least one of these fields is mandatory: DUNS number, taxpayer ID, or tax registration number. So let us enter taxpayer ID. So select the tax country. Okay, as soon as you enter a tax country, taxpayer ID and tax registration number are kind of enabled. Now, generally in US, taxpayer ID is a 9-digit number. So let me just enter, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0. So that is a kind of a header part. And again, we should also fill these details. It says at least enter one contact. So this is a supplier contact. So the person, this is basically a supplier representative detail. So at least one detail is required, or one contact is required. Enter a first name. So let me just enter it as Patrick David, and email ID is mandatory. Let me call it as patrick.david@gmail.com. This is also mandatory. Just select this create user account. And when you select create user account, you need to specify what kind of supplier contact is here. Just a supplier self administrator, or supplier sales clerk, or supplier sales representative, or supplier product administrator, and so on. So let me select supplier sales representative. Enter at least one address for remittance and ordering address purpose. So enter at least one address for this particular supplier. So countries United States, and as I have already selected the taxation countries United States in the previous screens, United States country is defaulted here. If I want, I can manually enter the address, or I can just pick up postcode, and based on that, address will be automatically defaulted. And what kind of address is this? Is it just if I select this ordering, so that means I can use this particular supplier address when creating a purchase orders or purchase request. When I select this particular remit to, so that means this supplier address can be used while creating AP invoices and payments. And just give a name. So I'll just give a name as Adunjatas. That's the name, Adunjatas 1. Just give that address name, just a name for an address. And then this is also mandatory. Product and service category, enter at least one product and service category. So what kind of products are being sold by this particular vendor? So what kind of supplier is that? Maybe I'll just say he's a supplier who provides us office supplies. Okay. Now let me click on register. As soon as I click on register, you can see a message, your registration request was submitted. Now this particular supplier is sent for an approval. So since I think 21 20D or 21A, this supplier approval process introduced in Fusion. So as soon as you submit or you register as a supplier, the supplier will goes to the supplier administrator for an approval. So this being a testing environment, I have both the supplier manager as well as supplier administrator role. But in general, in a live environment, a person who's creating a supplier may not have the supplier administrator role. So in this case, I've created the supplier. It should, in general, go to supplier administrators, and the persons who have the supplier administrator can log in and approve this particular supplier. But as I already have that particular role, I will automatically get that email notification or your system notification wherein I can approve that supplier. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds. I should be able to see that notification here. Okay, let me search for the supplier. Let me check again. Okay, still did not receive the notification. And then when I search for supplier, let's see what it shows. Couple of ABCs. It doesn't show the ABC Limited which we created just now. Okay, let us search here. ABC. Okay, still doesn't show here. Let me go to my notifications. Yeah, here we can see the supplier registration request 2005 for ABC Limited. You can open this and you can approve or reject. If you reject, again a notification for your information notification go to the person who has created the supplier, and he can edit and he can resubmit the same supplier. But in this case, this will automatically come to me because I'm the person who has actually created this. So let me just approve this. I think it is approved. Yeah, yeah, it's approved. Now let me search for the supplier. ABC Limited. Okay, so if you look at the steps, so we have completed registering of supplier, entering of the address, and approval. And if we actually enable approvals even for the spend authorization, so there will be another one more approval wherein we need to submit for spend authorization. So the prerequisite would be managed supplier spend authorization approval should have been enabled. In my current environment, it is enabled, but under managed supplier spend authorization approvals, I have set the approval as automatic. So that means the supplier will be automatically approved for spend authorization. But in a real world, it supplier can be approved by one person, and the spend authorization can be approved by a different person. Okay, and after that, the next step would be to create a site against the addresses. So click on edit, sites. So procurement BU, Reliance Telecom, address. So by default, your address name will come as a site name. If you want, you can change, or otherwise you can leave it as is. And the site purpose, the purchasing pay is defaulted from the address. If you want, you can again enable it for sourcing and other stuff. Otherwise, you can leave them as is. And there are yeah, you need to actually save. Then only these other tabs will be enabled. Click on save. There are a lot of other items here, but I'll just focus on the critical fields. Go to the payments and select the default payment method. This default payment method will be defaulted when you try to create a AP invoice. So I've selected check as my default payment method, and the other important stuff is the site assignments. So as far as the site assignment is concerned, click on this plus. Here we have something called client BU, select Reliance Telecom, and then bill to BU. It is again default to Reliance Telecom. And so totally there are three different BUs here: procurement BU, client BU, and bill to BU. So what exactly are these three? Generally, in a centralized procurement company, or in a company where the procurement function is centralized, you can have a different procurement business units, different client business unit, different bill to business unit. That is basically a procurement BU would be the business unit which will be procuring the goods, and client BU would be one of the business unit which will be say creating requisitions, and build to BU would be another BU which will be say creating an AP invoices to be which will be creating an AP invoices that is basically receive the vendor invoices from the vendor. So all these three can be different. But in my current example, I have selected procurement BU, Reliance, sorry, the client BU and bill to BU as the same, and only one is coming in the dropdown. The reason being, when I log in as Cassie Brown, I have assigned Cassie Brown as a procurement agent only for Reliance Telecom. Had I assigned this particular user to more than one BUs, then those BUs would have been come in the drop down. As I have assigned this user only for one BU, only that particular BU is coming in the drop down. Okay, and if you want, we can assign the other stuff here: ship to location, bill to location, other stuff, and your liability account and the prepayment account. So I think in EBS, your liability account, prepayment account would be defaulted to your supplier side from the financial options. But in Fusion, it doesn't default. You need to manually enter the concerned liability or prepayment account. And if you enter something here, then whenever you create your AP invoices, it will be directly picked up from the supply side. But if you do not enter any your liability account or prepayment account here, and when you try to create your AP invoice, then your liability or your prepayment account will be defaulted from the common options, which is equivalent to kind of financial options in EBS. The reason why these are not defaulted in this particular screen from the common options is basically here you have a concept of different BUs. Now system doesn't understand from which BU it needs to default those values, whether it should be from bill to BU or client BU or procurement BU. So that's the reason why these are not defaulted. You need to manually enter if required. Otherwise, you can leave it blank. And then when you try to create an AP invoice, it will be defaulted from the common options of the BU under which you are creating that AP invoice. Yeah, I think that's it. And you can just click on save and close. Then you get a pop-up message saying that the record is saved. And then again click on submit. That is also again saving. Yeah, I mean submit here doesn't go for any kind of any other further upload, it's just a saving. And after this, now you can start using this particular vendor for creating your AP invoices. Thank you. Thanks for watching my video. For interesting videos on Raquel Financials, please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.